Now, do you have a sense of how many are local?
Local moves?
Well, no, local students.
From like walkers from the neighborhood?
Yeah.
And moving?
No, not that are moving, just,
Our percentage?
yeah.
Should have sent this to me in an email because I had the numbers at the beginning of the year. I want to say it's higher than what I imagine. I want to say about a 4.
Okay, our local.
Yeah, I remember it being higher than I thought it would be. I can check though. If you can shoot me an email, I can check and give you the exact
Okay.
numbers on that. Because I'm not certain, especially now that we're more than halfway through the year.
Yeah, anyway, if you want, if you can find your name, I think it should be on there because you came to one of the meetings, Moniek. But I don't know how many more people we're going to have.
It's bad out. Like,
It's
it took me
bad, I know.
about 15 minutes to get right down the street.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I can get here in like 3 or 5.
Yeah, so far we've got John here. Eleanor can't make it. She was need a pen.
Yes, thank you. No, I have one in this bag somewhere.
Eleanor got home after work and took her 20 minutes or more to get there, and
It's
she
no fun.
decided to not try to wreck the car to go to a meeting.
No, it's not worth it.
So she said, shoot the video, I'll do the notes from the video.
Where do you want me to sign? Just anywhere near my...
Yeah, just sign somewhere.
It's not legally binding.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
You didn't see the check underneath there, right?
Oh!
Yeah, we had the CTE meeting over at Wilson Foundation yesterday.
Yeah, I saw Deisha at our receivership meeting today.
Oh,
She was saying it went well.
yeah, it seemed to go pretty well. You had a receivership meeting downtown. Who was there at that meeting?
All of the receivership principals.
Oh, okay. Meeting with the superintendent?
No, meeting with school chiefs and the OSI team, just on making sure we're staying abreast on when the things are due, like deadlines for when the CET team has to have the recommendations done. So just a very methodical deadlines, making sure everyone stays on the same page.
So is it doable?
You know what, judging from our schools in cohort 1, it looks very doable. But it's a lot of hard work. I mean, I feel like it's a job on top of an already difficult job.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like it's doable.
See, our next CET meeting at
On the 6th.
19th is on
Wednesday on the 6th.
On the 6th. Monday on the 6th. Okay.
Who's heading that up in the school? Is that you or?
Yes, I'm heading it up as of now. And I hope to break out into small groups based on our SIG grant and our 3 main priorities.
So how was it prioritizing those?
For us, it's a prioritized according to our SIG. So we have 3 big buckets. One is social emotional. The other one is our instructional model.
Yeah.
And the last one is community engagement. So those are our big 3 priorities that already exist within our SIG that we gathered feedback from the community based around those 3.
Yeah, let's see. Everything going well from what you know as far as the superintendent goes?
I have no idea.
Haven't seen him recently.
Oh, you mean is
Well, health, and is he active down there?
I don't spend enough time down there.
Yeah, I haven't gotten down there. We haven't had our coffee and conversations. Which
I'm sure if something wasn't going well, we would hear about that. So
Yeah.
I'm just assuming that everything's going well.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara discontinued those.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah.
hopefully they'll fire him back up. I'll have to.
They used to have coffee and conversation.
Oh,
Bowen started that. And it turned out there'd be John and I and maybe 3 other people. And so Vargas, because that's when we were fighting for keeping schools open, and that was a communication vehicle. But he had those regularly, just sort of he and the chief of staff. And then that was continued a little bit by
Yeah, Linda
Dan and
Linda Simmons.
Samoos, yeah.
She continued that, and we had. It was nice, because you get a chance to talk with the superintendent and share ideas and whatnot.
The disappointing thing is so few people win.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, out of the whole district, there was us and 2 other people.
wow.
Sometimes it was a little bigger than that, but under Barbara it was even worse than that. Because she brought her staff.
Oh, to the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one time I was the only person there, and I just, at the beginning, and I just joked. I said, well, thank you for coming to my staff meeting. I'm not sure she appreciated that, but it just struck me as something to say.
Oh yeah, it was. It was kind of sad to see. John and I went to enough of those. We didn't get too much intimidated by everybody showing up there. But you wonder, a parent comes in, you got 6 high-powered staff that are sitting there. I don't know. That didn't go well during Barbara's stay, I thought. But
Yeah.
with Linda, she was just so wonderful, down to earth. If we were like this, she'd come and sit right there instead of being at the table across the room.
Right.
It was very interactive, and we got to talk to the superintendents a lot, but
Because they would do like 7:30 in the morning, and then another one at 5:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
I like that's. I mean, that's doing around people's schedules. That's
Mhm.
very realistic.
yeah.
Cameron Clyburn is doing that at 10.
Doing. I'm sorry.
Coffee with the principal now.
Okay.
And again, she's got the same level of participation, I think, as Linda had. But you hope that when people hear about it, they'll eventually sort of kick in and start to go. But it'd be something to try.
We have we do that once a month. We have parents come in the morning for coffee, and I sit with them.
Oh, okay.
So we do it once a month,
Okay.
and our attendance fluctuates. I would say on an average we have 3 or 4 parents, and we do it as soon as school starts on Friday. So as they're dropping off, we're good morning, come on in and have some coffee with us and sit down and chat. So we try to keep it informal, and if they just want to come in and get some coffee and donuts and head off to work, then they're welcome to do that. But
You prefer they stay for a little bit anyway.
well, I mean, I prefer they stay because I would want to hear their feedback or any
Yeah.
concerns or things they have to share. But just making that connection is huge for me too, understanding that I'm just in my 2nd year. So
Yeah, how I made it to the. They had a meeting over at School 17 about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, maybe now. It was a press conference, and they were reporting on the breaking the school to prison pipeline, and basically going over the fact that there have been some significant changes in this one is course failed by Rochester City School students, and since they put in the new code of conduct, there have been fewer failures, fewer suspensions, and they were just basically going over what is basically good news with the new code of conduct and restorative justice. And over at 17, they've really been focusing on implementing that, but I I don't know how, whether there's been enough support from central office or people to work with the kids really in this restorative justice sort of environment. What's your take on how the training has gone out for that?
It's working really well in our building. So one of our big key buckets or key priorities is the social emotional, which is another word for restorative practices. So the district is very supportive, and that team, Ruth Turner's team, is very supportive. We have monthly meetings where one member of her team comes out to meet with our school team. But that's something that we've also initiated because my school is very interested in learning more and the full implementation of the use of restorative practices. So that team within school base has reached out, and they've been nothing but willing and helpful in providing support and trainings. I've seen a huge decrease in our suspensions from last year based on implementation of this, and learning to be crafty about resources. So utilizing resources like our recess coach, Center for Youth Services, Help Zone person, and pulling all of those people along with our counselor and social worker in to work on those restorative practices. So, I mean, for us, the district support has been very strong. Also, we use money from our SIG, not last year, but the year before, to go to Peary and get some training there so that all staff members that were involved with our school that year had that training as well. So it's working for us, and I'm pleased with the level of support.
Great.
And it's definitely shown to make a huge improvement on our building. I don't know if you've ever been to our building, but last year we struggled. I mean, behaviors were, we struggled on a daily basis. This year, a much different.
You still K through 8?
Pre-K through 8.
Pre-K.
This year, a much different atmosphere. I'm very proud of the work that staff has put in to make that change.
That's great. Yeah.
Especially how it was 7th and 8th.
Yes, and that, we're going to be honest, but you already know that's the most challenging part of the building in terms of climate and culture, and academics, to be quite honest, because when that climate and culture isn't quite there, the academics tend to suffer.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But I know we're moving in the right direction. I know we are.
Now, how many of your 7th graders were 6th graders the year before at 19?
About half.
That's not as bad as it could be.
But also understanding that our numbers at 6th grade have been really low because a lot of our students unfortunately leave us at 6th grade because we have that fabulous Strings for Success violin program. So a lot of our kids use that as a way to apply to School of the Arts, which is awesome. But we lose a lot of awesome kiddos 6 go 7 because of that transition. So we're trying to expand our program to be more robust because it's an excellent program, and the ladies that work that program are phenomenal. So my conversation with them has been, how can we expand it? How can we strengthen it to the point where our kids and families want to stay and maybe make the transition from 19 to SOTA in 9th grade instead of 7th? But I'm going to be very honest with you that, if students want to go and it's a great opportunity, let me be your number one fan.
Yeah.
I will drive you to your audition. But 19 is close to my heart. I want to keep my babies with me as long as I can.
Yeah.
How many strands do you have in
2 of each grade level.
2 of each grade level? Now, when you get to 7 and 8, is that enough strands to have the you're moving teachers between classes or classes between teachers? Or?
So middle school we have 2 strands too, and we have 4 core teachers. So they teach both 7th and 8th grade. So if you are a middle school teacher at 19, you'll teach 7th grade ELA and 8th grade ELA.
Okay. That gives them a full schedule?
That gives the teachers a full schedule, it does.
So you don't have itinerant teachers that are coming in?
We do for things like specials. So for like home and careers, or they call it FACS, we have that 1 period a day. So we have an itinerant teacher for that. Technology, that's 1 period a day. So we have an itinerant teacher for that. But for their core teachers stay with us all day.
Okay.
This sounds like an inquisition.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, gee,
Yeah.
we don't. This is my first chance of really getting all my questions in. On the busing issue, which we've been pushing, how many of your kids are local and basically walk to school, or how many are coming from all
That's
over?
what you were going to try to find out.
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it's definitely a quarter or more. But I would like to be able to get back to you because I just don't want to misspeak, and I know it fluctuates too.
Yeah.
But if you want, I can definitely shoot you an email with those numbers.
Yeah, it'd be good to get a feel. So I know over at 17, they got, I think, the local enrollment up to about 77% or something, but that city's paying for the local busing there, and I guess perhaps the local busing, they have to go to the corner to get picked up.
Oh,
It's
okay,
not
instead
quite
of
door to
the
door,
curb.
but at least it saves them having to walk 1.5 miles to get there from the local area. Have you gotten a chance to get that link out to parents?
Not.
No? Okay. Yeah, if you could try to get that out. I don't know if is there any problem with the school promoting this, or
Not that I know of. I haven't checked into it, to be honest, but I can.
yeah, I think it would be because we're
Well, we said we were online around 200.
up to 300 now. It just
really?
went over 300 last night.
Never mind.
Yeah, so
And then there's probably another 70 that are written. Except there's 3 different versions of that. One was to Gant, one was to...
yeah, we originally had it to Gannon, to Ranzenhofer, and then we decided to try to just get feedback irrespective of who's on first as far as the folks in office.
So can you just talk to me a little bit about this survey? So the purpose of the survey is to get an idea of how many students
It wasn't a survey,
are...
it was a petition.
Oh, pitch, okay.
So it's to sign a petition to argue with the state Department of Ed for reimbursement. But it's actually the assembly that has to do that. So it's also to go to the assembly and
And the
use
Senate,
it.
really, they both have to pass it.
Yeah. But to
The
get-
same year. which-
Yeah.
So the idea is to get busing for all students, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically all students.
Regardless of distance.
Yeah, they got the Senate passed the legislation 3 or 4 years ago where it would cut it down to 1/2 mile limit for reimbursement, and the Assembly didn't pass it that time, and then another time the Assembly passed it and the Senate didn't. I think
But
they
that was
both-
only as a pilot,
and that was as a pilot.
just to
yeah.
do School 17 as a pilot. And nothing about the rest of what about everybody else? That was not on the table at all.
okay.
So
Well-
part of it is just to allow lobbying to the assembly, to the,
So is the thought that a lot of students or parents or families choose not to enroll students in their home
Yeah.
school because they prefer to have busing?
Yeah,
Okay.
that seems
Sure,
to
that
be,
was the-
when we.
Because I've heard that. I've heard a parent express that concern to me, is that, I really want to stay with you. My child is happy, but, I don't feel comfortable with him or her walking,
Yeah.
yeah.
especially crossing certain streets
Yeah,
in the
depends
morning.
on where, what's the route to school from
Right.
where they live. But when we got started on this in 2012, I had gotten a hold of Ralph Spezio. I'd asked Eleanor, who do we talk to fight having a School 16
He's a great
closed?
person. He's a champion, yeah.
Yeah, and she said, "Oh, well, you should talk to Mary and to Ralph Spezio," and we did that. And one of the first things Ralph said, which was what he did at 17 when he came in the 90s, early 90s, was stop the busing. And at that time, the principal could do that. They didn't have the managed school choice policy, and so there was a lot of flexibility. And I repeated that to, when I went to the 19th Ward Community Association, tried to get them fired up, and I think it was the wrong person I talked to, because I think he was sending his kids somewhere by bus. Anyways, they kind of dragged their feet a little bit, and then I went to the Southwest Common Council and got them to fire up their education committee, and we were able to get Watkins, one of the teachers, Diane Watkins, I don't know if you know Diane, but she was the first chair of the committee. But we started basically, as we talked with Ralph, it became more and more obvious that things have changed. You can't just stop the busing now, and so the only alternative is make it everybody can get bused whatever distance. And
So it's been called at least 3 different names.
yeah,
Short distance busing, universal busing, and busing for all, or, sort of like busing for all.
and the main thing is like this was data for school 17, where kids come from now and where they'd come from if everybody went there from their neighborhood school. And the main thing that you look at is how much easier it is to get parent involvement.
Yeah, because that's where we struggle.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
Which is why we canceled tonight, because, how can I ask parents to wait for their child to get home from school off the bus, put them right in the car, come right back to
Yeah.
school in this weather? I mean,
yeah, it's Ralph was telling us at one meeting he had some mother he was trying to. In fact, he was back at 17 at that time, because he went back for a year or two, and he was trying to get a mother to come in to talk over because her son's having a lot of problems, and he gets her to agree to do that. She says, "Where is school 17?" She put her child on a bus and went to 17, and where is it? So this was a study that was done back in 2000. Well, we got the report was done in 2015, and we had another one, which I don't know if I've got with me, which was the, I don't think so. But there's another one that actually ran some numbers, and it turned out it was cheaper. You could show that if you had local busing, that if you institute it and have 25% of the kids from the neighborhood take you up on it versus what we're doing now, it breaks even. You don't spend any more on it, because now you're cutting down the number of buses, and the break even is around 25%, and eventually, I think this is the break even chart
A
on.
lot of the kids who are in there now, their choice, do you want to stay in that school and graduate out of that school, or do you want to move somewhere else? Because that's the tricky part to me, is like I'd hate to have downtown just come along and say, okay, boom, we're going to do this in all the schools, and everybody changes where they're going, because that would just disrupt any sense of school unity that's within the students. But otherwise it may take forever to get that change accomplished. I just don't have a good feel for it.
Yeah. We've been talking mostly about seeing a morphing of going from, kids coming from everywhere to coming from the neighborhood.
hi.
If we had. Hello, how you doing?
Alicia.
Alicia. Have a.
I can sit on that side.
Yeah, sure.
That's fine.
Oh, okay. You can sit back there.
Yes, I'm back to see you.
Oh,
We're videoing here just so that we can have notes transcribed because I'm terrible at notes.
Hello.
Howdy.
Howdy.
If you can introduce yourself.
My name is Alicia Ward, and I'm the manager of the SWCC ATTAIN Computer Lab at Baden Street Settlement, and we serve and provide computer-based job skills training and Microsoft certifications to the greater Rochester area.
Great. I'm glad you
At no
to
cost.
join us. I sent out the note to you this afternoon, and she was at one of the Southwest Common Council meetings last week, and we have Moniek Silas-Lee, who is the principal at 19, and John Laing is from the neighborhood, chairs the 19th Ward Schools Committee, and I chair the Education Committee, as I mentioned last Thursday. We were just talking about short distance busing, which I think I probably touched on last week. But we're at, right now we're at about.
How short distance is short distance busing?
50 feet. No, it's all right. But there are kids who are bused from a house across the street, from a school to another school. But it's basically whatever the parent wants. So it could be like a zero distance. That would be odd. But rather than putting a limit on it, like 120 feet or 200 yards or something, it's easier just to say anybody who wants to be bused can be bused to the school, to their closest school.
Yeah, the day that they opened School 16, first school day, some of us from the 19th Ward went there to welcome the kids. And I live 2 blocks from the school. So I walked to the end of the block I'm on, and there are parents there putting their kids on a bus to go heaven knows where. And I'm sure they hadn't thought of even looking, if they had even heard about School 16, I don't know. But that's the problem we have in the community, is that people are being bused all over, which you wouldn't mind if there was a legitimate reason for going to some other school, Maybe the kid has got some real enemies in the neighborhood who are going to be making life a living hell for them at that school, and they'd rather go somewhere else because of situations like that. But most of the time, they're going from a mediocre school to another mediocre school, and the schools stay more mediocre because you don't get as much family involvement in them. So anyways, that's what we've been pushing for on the short distance busing.
Do you think short distance busing would increase attendance?
Would it increase what?
Attendance.
Probably.
Yeah, certainly if you miss your bus, you can walk. If you're so motivated. I remember when I went to junior high and to high school, we took a bus. This was back in Massachusetts. But we had to walk to the bottom of the hill, and there was a post office there, and everybody got the school bus there. But if you didn't make it and you missed the bus, then you hoofed it the rest of the way, and it was, a mile or more to get to the school, a couple of miles or so. So it was a lot of incentive to get there. But, I think for places like, I don't know if this is the 19th Ward. I don't know how familiar you are with the 19th Ward, but this is a 1.5 mile circle. So right now, the state will pay for a kid to get bused from over there to School 16, but they won't bus a kid, they won't pay for the child coming from here to School 16. And that's you're almost out at Cornhill before you
I
can
think you make
get
it to
busted.
Nick Tahoe's.
Pardon?
You make it to Nick Tahoe's there, you make it to 490 going north, and
Far away?
you're in the airport.
I didn't realize it was that far.
Yeah, that sort of, that kind of brings it home when you think of what we're asking kids to do, and perhaps it, if this was out in the country and you're walking into this little town and the school's in the center of town, and you save a lot of money by this policy because most of the kids live within that 1.5 mile radius. But here in Rochester, you can always find a school that's 1.5 miles away. So you can have your child bus to a school 2 miles away, but you can't have them bus to the school that's closest because of the reimbursement policy, and the city would go broke if they, once you got
Whine about it.
they would whine about it. They're doing it right now for school 17 at the city's expense, and the attendance at 17 has gotten up to about 77% local enrollment. But if you don't get the,
I mean, is that just making people less mobile and less active if you're not gonna walk 2 blocks?
yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice if we could say stop the busing, and make the kids walk. But
Or is it making kids safer because within that 2 block radius there is nefarious activity that is not safe for the kid within that 2 block area. So it's
could
like
be.
the two ends of the spectrum. Can't you walk 2 blocks? Or do you want your kid walking 2 blocks through nefarious activity? And it's not just that it's 2 blocks, and when I went to school, I had to walk a mile to school, so why can't kids today walk a mile? Well, there wasn't necessarily the same activity in your mile walk as there is today. But kids are also have health challenges and obesity and all that because they're not walking a mile to school.
Yeah. One of the things that healthy kids, gal that was at the table across from, over to that side of me there at the last meeting, she's from the Healthy Kids group, and they've tried to have walking school buses set up for various neighborhoods. They tried some at school 10 for a while, and they were trying some over at school 19.
What is walking to school?
You have a parent or somebody that goes around and has a list of kids that they're going to pick up, and they walk them to school. It's a safety thing, and make sure the child doesn't get lost.
But it was originally fitness, because it was an American Heart. So
That's what I did, or I did. I mean, we all walked. There was a group of us that walked to school together. So I had friends that lived on Woodbine, near Woodbine and Arnett, and I lived near Thurston and Arnett. So the ones that walked from Arnett and Woodbine walked and picked me up, and we all kept walking over to 44 School. So we all walked to school together, and in the reverse, we all dropped each other off on the way back home. And
that's ideally that's what we will get to, but
they walked all the way from here. They walked all the way from practically here all the way to 44. they didn't go to 16. And I didn't go to 16. My brothers went to 16. I went to 44. You know, but anyway.
One of the things that they found when they tried doing it at 19 and over at 10 is of the kids that are currently being bused there, you know, there are relatively few from the neighborhood. So when they try to see how many kids can they get to sign up for the walking school bus from the neighborhood within walking distance, there are very few kids going there because they're all getting bused in from somewhere else. Our hope is that once you start having a good concentration of local students going to the school, then you can set up a walking school bus. And I don't know if there's some incentive besides just telling parents it'll be a lot healthier for your child if they...
Or would they pay for a person to be that walking school bus driver to pick up, to knock on the door and get the kids along the way? And then, I mean, I think that would be an awesome idea. And then you would find out why a kid is not in school, because there would be somebody going along the way at 8 o'clock and 8:10 and 8:15 and 8:30, knocking on every door in the neighborhood, picking up kids, getting kids to go to school.
Yeah.
I think when it was originally set up by American Heart, they were nursing students who did the walk. And that was just part of what they had to do for their courses that semester. Because my wife was on the American Heart National Committee that decided on grants. And she said she had to argue with people that this was a good idea. Fortunately, she can argue pretty well.
I mean, I think that would eliminate a lot of truancy, and they would find out what kids are, because that person can have a smartphone of sorts and write down when they pick up somebody, when they drop them off, when the kid got home.
Yeah, I think that's ideally what we'd like to get to. But I think we get there by first saying, bus anybody who wants to get bused, so that you get this concentration of kids going to their neighborhood schools. Then you can start saying we're going to offer you a walking school bus or a bicycling parade or whatever. I've got one video of some city in Rochester. I don't know if it's not in Rochester. I think it might be Florida or something, where they've got this pedal mobile where there's about a dozen kids that get on there, and each of them is pedaling, and it's just a fun way for the kids to get to school on their own, exercise, and
I have to talk to Jesse Canal.
pardon? The thing we need to do, and here we are, almost March. How much longer are the folks in Albany in session? Another couple of months or so?
I don't know, I'm not sure. I think June, I think.
But we're going to have to start looking at actually taking the petition we've got and seeing about talking to the folks.
Yeah.
We're at about 300 now, and anything that any of you can do to send, and it's on that invitation that I sent you, this local busing. This link here gets you to the site, and you can just basically
Join the petition.
join the petition, and you can send that link to friends,
Right.
post it on your Facebook page, all sorts of things to get the word out. And the more people post it, the more it gets to people, because the first time or two that they see it, they may not do it. And I've been trying to get it out to as many Facebook sites as I can, but we need to get out there and shake the bushes.
So do you think in 19 this would work?
The busing.
Busing.
I definitely think there's a lot of pros to it. I know John was asking me about how I thought if we did it, it should roll out. And I have to say I'm torn. I would want to survey parents, talk to parents about it. I mean, I know it's going to be a complete change in mindset. From my experience, and again, I've only been there, this is my second year, a lot of parents like the flexibility to choose their school. A lot of other parents feel like we don't have the parental support we need and desire because parents can't get back. I mean, and you made the point of, I put my child on the bus and they go to 17 school, but I have no idea where 17 school is because I've never personally been there, but I know that's where the bus takes my child. I just really want to see our school community become a community in general. And I can't say that I always feel that way because my parents don't have easy access to school. And I really need them to have easy access to school. So, I mean, I definitely see the benefits, I truly do. But I just don't know how that'll look systematically. I don't know if it's best to maybe look at one school at a time, look at one zone at a time.
Yeah, I think that kids that are going someplace today, they have their friends there. They're going to want to probably continue in that school, and I wouldn't want to change that. I think this should be something that you transition to, and it's probably going to take 6 years, in most of the K-6 schools to
So start out with the kindergarten.
starting out with the kindergarten. And one of the things that
kindergarten is close to being there, right?
Yeah.
Pre-K, mostly local.
Well, pre-K is parents drop them off wherever they're going.
There's universal pre-K at daycare centers all across the city. So,
But from K on, they would be taking the bus. But you almost need the parent to put them on the bus when they're a kindergartner. But what they are doing right now, from what I hear from talking with Mary Adams and also Mike Schmidt, when they start off in the fall, they find out where all the kids who want to go to school, 19, let's say, are coming from, and they drop the routes that the buses are going to take, and that tells them how many buses they're going to need, and the buses aren't going to get there full because they'll have some extra space. And right now they're backfilling. Once they've gotten the number of buses determined, then they look at how many kindergartners can we pick up from within this mile and a half, how many first graders, and they work up from there. So that's great, in terms of helping.
But that doesn't happen immediately, so I just want to
and parents, are
it's like a month into school, and sometimes that attendance or that absenteeism rate is too high to overcome even with excellent attendance going forward, if that makes any sense. Because once you hit that 10%, you're at that 10%. So, that is happening. But again, from my lens, I would like to see it happen like the first week of school. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, when parents are picking a school.
Wait, what do you want to see the first week of school?
That the backfill happens. So, make that run on the first day of school, but by that second week, please tell me that you can go and backfill with my K students who live within that mile and a half, whose parents don't feel comfortable with them walking to school. So what happens for me at least is a lot of parents opt not to send them. And then, absenteeism becomes a concern, and even when they are able to catch the bus, it's hard to undo that absenteeism that has already occurred, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, but that would be solved by having busing for all.
It would be.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of the way to view it. How can it help? And so I think when you talked about wanting to talk to your parents about it, absolutely. And that should happen before they make their choice of school for the next year, assuming school choices still exist in some places. So it's probably in the January, February timeframe to communicate with the parents as much as you can, assuming that you're going to have local busing. And then when it comes, they've already signed up because that's how they're going to get their kid to school. But you need that promise that that's how you're going to get their kid to school.
Yeah.
Now, Linda Smooth went to Albany to lobby for that.
Yeah, she did some lobbying for it. In fact, there had been some lobbying at various times for usually for half a mile busing, but it just hasn't happened yet. Now we've got both houses in Albany are controlled by the same party, so maybe that will help them coordinate between the Assembly and the Senate. One can always hope. But anyways, whatever you can do to help spread the word, and if there's any additional, feedback you can get, take a look at if you go to this link, there's a whole list of things, arguments that we've put together for why we think this should work. And if there's any other things that we should be considering and listing, that's something to find out if you talk with parents. But most of the folks we've talked to, and we were on John and I sat on Liz Hallmark's Managed School Choice Policy Task Force, and for close to 6 months, we were meeting frequently to talk about what changes should be made to that, and I think most everybody on that was pushing for having more neighborhood school involvement, because a lot of times if a person applies for school and they don't get it, they end up going somewhere else that's still some distance, rather than having the school district try to convince them to go to their neighborhood school. And I don't know why they don't work more at trying to get them to their closest school. But
Well, one of the bad examples was a woman who had 8 kids in 8 different schools. Now, you could have high school and middle school and elementary school, so there's at least 3, but there were 5 more in there someplace.
yeah, that makes it tough to make it to the parents' meeting, especially when they're all held on the same night.
True.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's one of the things we want to make sure we get people spreading, try to get this online petition signed by people, and our hope is that we'll have, a smooth transition where we start filling the lower grades with local kids, and the ones who've been there for 3 or 4 years, they can, work their way up through school and graduate to wherever. We haven't been working too much at the high school level because we've got our hands full aiming at the elementary schools, and that's probably where there's the most bang for our buck in terms of making positive changes, because if the kids really succeed and go on to junior high and high school with a good foundation, there's going to be less problem for them in high school. But the number 4 there is, there are links on the stuff that I sent out. All these things in blue here are hot links. You can press on them to read the good news thing. Is this document that's from the Children's Agenda. Eamon, well, you've met Eamon, he's come to some of these meetings, and they had the AQE Metro Justice Education Committee, but basically they've been looking at how's the restorative justice and new code of conduct, which is aimed at reducing suspensions, because kids were getting suspended sometimes for things they shouldn't have been suspended, but it got them out of the classroom, and the teacher had an easier time with the rest of the kids, but then they come back in falling further and further behind. And the news that's coming back is that the suspensions have gone down, and consequently courses failed have gone down, and it's really good news that things are working out the way the people who pushed for years to get the code of conduct, the new code of conduct, approved.
So has the behavior changed or the yardstick?
I think behaviors have changed.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, students understand the circle process. They understand what needs to happen to repair harm. They understand what's acceptable. I mean, it's nothing better to me when a child is walking down the hallway and I can just look at them and they say, "I'm so sorry, I should have done, or I should have said, or can I do that over?" Like, that to me is priceless, because they're self-correcting the behavior.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Instead of me saying, "You said this, I'll meet you at detention at such and such time." I mean, that's just very punitive, and the students aren't learning from that.
Great. It's really nice to hear that we've got some positive changes there, because if you listen to the Aquino report and what comes out of Albany, we're going to hell in a handbasket here. And
Well, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
the first to tell you. I mean, you're all welcome to my building at any time, and I'm sure you can pick out a couple of good things, but there'll also be a couple of other things you're like, "What's up with this? What's going on with this? How is this being dealt with?" I mean, there's definitely some concerns, but at the same time, I don't feel it's going to be effective to try and deal with everything at once. I have to sort of pick and choose what am I going to get the biggest bang for.
Sure.
And right now it's that climate and culture piece.
Great.
How's Roz doing with the spelling bee?
You know what? She sent me an email. I think we have about 5 or 6 participants, but I
Okay.
haven't heard from her lately, because I know that she said they were practicing on Saturdays here, actually, right?
Yeah,
And I don't know if any of our kiddos have come.
I think
over.
maybe one of your kids.
Okay.
I've only come once myself, but
I can touch base with her.
yeah, mostly it's.
Because I'm not sure, to be honest. I know, like I said, she looked me into some emails. That's about it.
Okay, is there anything she needs?
Not that I know, because I did mention that to her, like, tell me what you need, how can I support? And she said she was fine.
Okay.
And I know she's been doing it for a number of years, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the 19th Ward Community Association's been working with 5 schools, 4 that are in the 19th Ward, and then 19, which isn't quite in the 19th Ward, but I guess
in
it's called 19, so.
Right.
But they've been,
You've adopted us.
John has been pushing this spelling bee each year, and each school comes up with a bunch of winners, and they go on to the U of R to put on a spelling bee there. And
Grades 3 through 6. And each school can send 2 finalists and an alternate for each grade level.
I remember at one point I worked with one of the fraternities. I did some coaching with a fraternity that supported the spelling bee. So,
Yeah, signify excellent.
exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how good they are with kids. I don't know why I'm amazed at that. But it's not the image of a fraternity. Maybe the reality of a fraternity, but the kids do a really great job. I've found that.
So it sounds like things are going well with the restorative justice and new code of conduct. The candlelight dinners, which not too many of the people. We tried having had you heard the story about the candlelight dinner? Okay.
We got a year to tell her. So,
Yeah, got a year to tell her, yeah. The 19th Ward has had this in February generally. They'll organize candlelight dinners and they'll ask for families or people who are willing to open up their house. They'd supply the main course of the meal, and everybody who volunteers to come to that will either bring dessert or salad or whatever. And it's really a nice occasion to meet people you wouldn't normally meet and get to see, the home they're in. And we've dealt with the fact that for years, it's been a long time since the teachers that staffed our schools lived in the neighborhood. Just about all of them grew up in the burbs, went to school with kids from the burbs, and went to college with kids from the burbs, and they come to the city and they have to deal with a culture shock because most of them are white. And probably a few of the kids who went to the black kids who went to school in the burbs may have, a little bit of a culture shock also, because the kids that are coming to school are coming from a much poorer environment generally than they were exposed to. And we've got a lot of teachers who never set foot in the community. We had teachers from 44 here one time. We had a couple of kindergarten and preschool teacher, I think, and one said she had been there for 17 years, and when we asked, have you gone to any restaurants or things like that in the neighborhood? No, they hadn't. And so how can we get them more involved? If you had local participation in the school, because either kids are walking or they're being bused from 3 blocks away, then you could say, well, they should have home visits occasionally. There was a time when teachers did that if there was a problem. A lot of times these days, some teachers are afraid to go out and have a home visit if there's a situation where they should, and if the child is across town, that makes it a little tough to say you're going to have a home visit. So we said, well, we could try to invite teachers to the 19th Ward candlelight dinners. This would be kind of a perfect opportunity to get them to come in and set foot in the neighborhood and find out that things are a lot friendlier than they may be imagining. Didn't get a single taker. Now, I don't know how much
I'm
of it...
not sure how much it was communicated.
Yeah, I don't know how much it was
Different year.
communicated.
I mean, you knew nothing about it, right?
No, I mean, it happened this past.
Yeah, we primarily, reached out to 44 and 16. We were most involved with 16 at that time because they were just coming back to the neighborhood. But I don't know, as much as we try to communicate, things fall between the cracks. But I was over at Wilson Foundation yesterday, and I brought that up at the CET meeting, and they sounded very interested. Oh, gee, that sounds kind of
Want to
interesting.
give you the 10-minute warning, okay?
Okay, very good. So anyways, that's something that would probably be something nice to do. 19 is not quite in the 19th Ward, but I think it would be great if we did have, teachers coming in, and we can get Mary D'Alessandro or somebody. There are people over there that I know from the Southwest Common Council, which includes neighborhoods outside of the 19th Ward. But this would be something good to try to get schools to think about doing to try to get the teachers more involved with the neighborhoods. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I definitely love the idea because I believe teachers need to understand the neighborhood in which their students come from. I just don't know the logistics of it, so I just need to hear more about the logistics and communicating it to teachers. I'm sure we'll have some teachers that will be very interested.
The logistics are pretty simple. People sign up with the association office to either be a host or a guest. And then how many, if you're going to host it, how many guests do you want? You want 2 or 4 or 6 or 20? Oh, 20. And then a committee tries to match people with guests with hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And then the host just calls the people and said, okay, here's what the main course is. You can bring blah, blah, or blah. Let me know, and I can tell the other people, don't bring that, bring something else. It's always the same night. Everybody does it the same night.
I guess my next question would be, what is the true purpose? Is the purpose to help staff members become acquainted and familiar with the community? Because who's hosting? Is it going to be our families hosting, or is it going to be middle class people living in the area hosting? So
Probably mostly middle class, to be honest, middle class people. Some are just as adults only, and others include kids, and depending how they set it up. But when we've done it, my wife and I have done it, we've done it just for couples.
mm-hmm.
Since our kids are long gone. So there's a mix of that. But I think we'd have to do more recruiting hosts.
Yeah.
I agree.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
But I think it's like market.
No.
There's like a fun little farmer's market that goes Tuesday nights.
Is that the one at St.
At
Monica's?
St. Monica's.
yeah, St. Monica's, yeah.
That's really close to me. That's like a block away.
Yeah. And, but we could give you like a booth if you want to talk about School 19. Here's what we do.
I'd
Here's,
love to do that.
yeah. Then send us back an email when the weather's better. We can
Okay.
we can tell you when it starts.
Yeah, that would be great, because we had a pretty good turnout. We were giving out free books there. We had a table for the 19th Ward Schools Committee and Education Committee, but it also was an opportunity for some of the school, the principals came and some of the teachers to, just make an appearance and get people to know what they're doing at their school.
How early does it usually start?
The time of year?
Market.
They generally start at 4, I think, 4 to 7.
I mean,
Seven's the time.
what month?
Usually.
It's got to be
May,
at least
I think.
May.
May, I think, yeah.
Until somebody
May
needs some
through
crop to come in.
October, maybe, or November. Yeah,
From May to November?
Not the
November,
not
October.
November.
Right.
No.
Late September, October.
Have you talked with the Gandhi Institute about it? Because they have that greenhouse and they produce a lot of their own goods right there.
I'm not sure who we've talked to. I mean, our community bikes is there, so I go with them and repair bikes. But
Food Link does that though, right? Or it's not, is it Food Link that operates the market?
They get
No.
farmers from regional farmers that come. So I don't think Food Link has gotten.
Food Link is around once in a while just to
Mhm.
do some recipes and
Oh, okay.
But Jackie Farrell, who is also coincidentally the 19th Ward Center Manager, she's the one who does a lot of the organizing for the market. So she's been, we should probably touch base with her and make sure that she reaches out to the schools and see, it would be good for the market to get more kids coming in, and good for the schools to get teachers to stop by and,
So maybe if the students at the school had a table, or if they were going to perform, if the choir was going to sing at the market,
Yeah.
then the parents are going to come because they have to bring the kids going to sing, or if there's a step team or a dance group that's going to perform at the market, they're going to come and their friends
Yeah.
are going to come because there's a stage and they're,
But that has to be done before the end of June, right?
yes.
Yeah.
well, if we get that started, then kids who live in this neighborhood could participate in that, and the schools would certainly benefit to have the kids get involved and parents to come to the market and be more aware of one place that they can get fruit, fresh vegetables and whatnot. Because there certainly is kind of a food desert in parts of the Southwest here.
But if the step team, if the Wilson Pearls were going to step at the market, people would show up.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
So some entertainment at the
Yeah.
market would help bring
Yeah, we've
people
had,
to
the
the market.
entertainment we've had has been not so much focused on kids from the schools, but that really would be great if we could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Or community-based entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Church choir from any of the churches that have a choir that would come. If you had church choir, every market night have 2 different church choirs.
Yeah,
And
and
then that brings everybody from the choir, and then their associates, and
Yeah, I mean, we've had little trios and the one that Diane sings on,
yeah, the
bureaucrats.
bureaucrats, yeah. That's kind of a city, folks from the city government that are playing a band together.
Joe
That-
Beard.
It would be good if we, one of the things that we need to try to, and I'm not being much of a churchgoer myself, I haven't reached out as much as probably would be good to try to get some of the churches in the neighborhood more involved with this committee and 19th Ward Schools Committee. We've had a few people who are quite active in their church, but anything that we can do to get more of the folks who are active, we got to all feed off of each other's energies, and if we can find a group that is very active, whether it's a church choir or whatever, they may also be interested in participating in things that.
I need to wrap you up.
You need to wrap us up. This clock says we've got 5 whole minutes.
Yeah, but my car's out there covered with snow.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you're on here.
I just signed last at the Common Council.
Yeah, put if you can put
But I
your
can sign in.
put your name down.
So
anyways,
there are a lot of educators that attend the churches in the neighborhood. I
Yeah.
know that. So I will be, and a number of them are retired educators.
Oh,
So it
that's
would be
even better. A
quite
lot of time on their hands.
quite advantageous if you connect with the churches and encourage them to, can I use that pen instead? Encourage them to send a delegate from each church,
Mm-hmm.
send a delegate and an alternate person to the council. So I think
Great.
that would be. Do you want my work? I'm doing this phone work. Right?
Whatever is going to be. You can put both of them down if you want.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for coming.
Because it was messy coming over here, so just
Yeah.
be safe and be careful.
We'll try to do that. And thank you
Stay
so
warm
much.
then.
It's been really nice getting involved with School 19, and nice to see things happening that are improving in
No, thank you.
all of our
And
places.
thank you for re-looping me back into this because I need to be here. Our school community needs it, so I appreciate that. And I have you on my calendar, so I'll
Okay.
be coming going forward.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Say hi to Roz
Good
for
to
me.
meet
I
you.
will. Take care. Same here.
Well, considering I was feeling like this meeting was going to be I won't say a bust because you and I could have talked all evening.
That would be a bust.
It turned out really well.